Welcome back! So in this video, we're going to talk a lot about why do we even care about organizational culture? And the number one thing I want you to take away, this is not just like fluff, you know, oh you should feel good about culture or whatever. It really does compete to a unique form of competitive advantage. Now if you want to take a historical example, think about Frederick Taylor. When Frederick Taylor is doing his pig iron experiments, and I talked about this in some of the previous videos, the pig iron experiments were basically, pig iron is kind of like these unrefined forms of iron that you superheat and turn them into steel. So these pig iron experiments, they would take these kind of bricks or large pieces of iron and they would haul them, you know, different distances. He also did some experiments with people that were shoveling coal and dumping it into rail cars, things like that, etc. So in the places that Taylor managed so well, other companies would go and they would try to pay these workers more to come work for them. However, it failed because Taylor's system of scientific management created a culture, and so that when you took people out of that culture and put them into a new culture, it failed. Why did it fail? Because the Taylor-trained employees tried to work really hard, and then they just get threatened and beaten up by the other employees who were not Taylor-trained because the Taylor employees were so good that it made the other employees look bad, so they tried to kind of keep them down. Okay? So it really does contribute to a competitive advantage. Working in a Taylor plant has workers that produce more, and everybody gets paid more. The workers get paid more higher quality products. The company makes more profits than the ones that didn't have that Taylor training and that accompanying culture. Now you may be thinking, like, what's another example? Some of you may have seen that extremely hokey movie called The Interns with Vincent Vaughn and Owen Wilson, and they talk about working at Google and they're looking for the googliness. In other words, that weird Google culture and how it all kind of works together and it makes Google work. That's one of the reasons that Google is so successful, is that people are kind of allowed to work their own way. They kind of mix work and play. There's a lot of floating between their working and their professional lives, and it just kind of somehow seems to work. Other cultures like Microsoft are very, very different than Google's, and that's what gives them a different kind of competitive advantage than Google. Google, you know, really emphasizes creativity and all that good stuff, whereas the Microsoft emphasizes, you know, the solidarity, the blue suits, the introspection, the deep thought, and all that kind of stuff. So this really does contribute to a kind of competitive advantage. Okay? So where does that competitive advantage come from? It comes from this triumvirate of workers, the organizations, and the environment. So when the worker culture matches the organization culture, and the two of them match the exterior cultural environment, and that could be a national culture like American culture versus Canadian culture, or it could be culture of a particular industry, like working in the oil industry, working in, you know, the retail industry, etc. But when there's an alignment between these three cultures, that's when the greatest competitive advantage exists. And again, think about it. When you look at the culture that Google has tried to create, the people that work at Google, they tend to be the Kool-Aid drinkers. In other words, they believe in Google's culture. And that kind of work atmosphere and that kind of attitude kind of generally matches that Northern California kind of computer tech innovation culture. So it all kind of works together and it winds up mutually reinforcing itself. And that's where that competitive advantage comes from. It's the linkage between the workers, organizations, and environment. And we actually call this causal ambiguity. We can't exactly say where is it, like, is the culture greater coming from the organization or the worker or the environment? It's just those links, and we can't really grab it, but it just kind of seems to work somehow, even if we don't necessarily fully get it. Okay? And another thing that's important for culture is it's an amazing managerial tool. Now, if you're watching this video, you're probably either a manager or B, hoping to be a manager someday. Or you're taking this because it's a requirement for your university. I guess that's the third choice, right? But what I'm getting at is a big part of being a manager is about being a teacher and a trainer, showing people the right way. Now, you're going to have employees and you're going to show them the right way to do things. Show them as much as you can, right? You're going to train them for every situation that you can imagine. But there are some situations that are going to arise that you didn't train your employee for. Either it's a new situation, you didn't think to train them for it, whatever the case is, you're not always going to be there. You might be sick, you might have a new job, you might be in the bathroom, who knows? And there's going to come a point where that employee has to make their own decisions based upon the training that you've given them and the implied culture that goes with it, right? If a customer comes up and they want something that's totally new that you never thought of before, well, if customer service comes first, that probably kind of matches that, right? I'll give a couple of examples from my own personal experience where I've made decisions that I felt reflected the culture, but were not strictly in the manual. They're kind of hokey, but bear with me. So, one of my first jobs is I was a front desk manager at a hotel. And it was pretty cool. I worked my way up from clerk, desk clerk and some other things at the hotel. And, we had a little Starbucks kiosk there. It wasn't a full service Starbucks, but it had like some very limited things. So we could make coffee with the little Starbucks kiosk, make some very simple beverages, etc. And there was a young woman who came. She had a small child with her, and what she really wanted was hot chocolate. And I could tell she was having a really bad day. You could just tell she had a child. She looked a little frenzied. And I looked and I said, we don't have hot chocolate on the menu. She said, oh, but it would just make my day to have a hot chocolate, and if I could share it with my child, is there anything you can do for me? And I said, you know what? I can't make a hot chocolate, but I can make something kind of like a hot chocolate. I'm going to make a hot mocha for you with no coffee. Because we had that like chocolate mocha syrup that goes into a mocha at Starbucks. And so I squirted that in there, I steamed the milk and everything and made it up for her. And then, I handed it to her. And she was so delighted that I had, made something kind of customized for her. She said, thank you so much. Like, how much do I owe you for it? And I kind of laughed. I said, you know what? I said, it's not on the menu, so I guess I can't charge you for it. And the look on her face, it was way more than she was being happy about saving $3. I had made somebody who was having a really, really bad day have a good day. And you know what? She became a loyal customer of that hotel ever since. So even though I guess I lost technically $3 or $3 times 2 on the 2 drinks, the company made up for it in the long run. But that was a situation that I wasn't trained for, and that wasn't a situation that I had trained people for. It was just kind of valuing customer service, and so that's what we did. Another time I remember, and some of you, if some of my former students are watching this, you may remember this. My first employer was a large public university, and a lot of the students there came from impoverished backgrounds. They didn't have a lot of money. And textbooks are very, very expensive. So what I did is I used articles and open source things from like projectgutenberg.org, and I would print all the course materials, and then I'd bring this big tub to class, and then I would give the materials to the students. Now someone got very frustrated with me, a coworker, because she said I was printing too much. And I pointed out that our culture here at this university is to place students first. I'm placing students first, and I believe this is the best way to serve those students, because that's what our culture is. I mean, she got mad, she wasn't convinced, but I still printed stuff for students. But that's the point that I'm getting at, is sometimes there's situations that you weren't trained for, but if you refer back to the culture, then you can interpret that culture in a new way, in a new situation for your own way and meaning. And that's why we talk about mechanism versus essence and tools. Mechanism is very theory X oriented. Did you do these steps right? Check, 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 check. I know how to do very simple things just the way my boss trained me. But when it's the essence, it's that cultural piece. Okay, the mechanisms don't talk about this. So what am I supposed to do? Refer back to the culture and then reinterpret those mechanisms in a new way. I hope these examples make sense. As always, give me a thumbs up, that's a like if you've liked this video. Hit that subscribe button and hit that bell button. And definitely make some comments down below. Looking forward to seeing you in the next video.